All right, let's bring on our next guest, Eric Lasky. And this is Early Global News. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, my pleasure. All right, let me back up because I remember talking to you when you were just getting this thing off the ground, and I was really like, amazing. Eric's back in the show. I've watched it grow. Great work, great work. Let me back up. Give our audience a background of who you are, what Early Global News does, and then where are we? I'll walk through some of the questions later. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, Early Global News is simply it's a newspaper of sorts. My team and I, daily for about 10 years now, we get up early a.m., like 2 in the morning,
Right.
And throughout the day, starting at 4 o'clock the prior day, we read about 265 global newspapers from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal, and we cherry pick about 15 pages of the most important articles, and we structure it and tag it. So when you go through it, you pretty much know every newspaper story on the planet pre-market, which does a lot of good things. And I created about 10 years ago. I'm an institutional sales trader for a brokerage firm in New York. I have been for about 20 years. And I represent a handful of extremely large hedge funds who, I guess, want the best, and they create a product that gives them exactly what they want, which is pretty much every article that they could possibly get their hands on that might have some value to it, and have it broken down in such a way that it's easy to digest, or it's easy for their software scraping systems to scrape through. What it does is it creates a lot of trading opportunities. Pretty much every day there's an article that's in there that comes out through the course of the day. Yesterday there was a story that came out maybe 11, 12 o'clock, and the stock jumped 6 points or 5 points in a fairly short period of time, while the story was in food safety news in the morning. But in order to find out one gem in food and safety news maybe once every few months, you have to read it every day. And the larger hedge funds who have the commissions or the size to pay for those types of services enable me to do it. But I literally only do it for two entities. So it's kind of interesting to see these stories percolate throughout the day.
Right.
There's really no subscription base. It's literally primarily two entities, two people.
Yeah. Let me jump in there, Eric. What led what led you to create this?
Good question. In 2008, they had this thing called the Stock Market Challenge, and my firm allowed me to participate in it. So I'd never seen it before. And in that year was obviously a very good year for me in the market. The markets were at the peaks, I think, or just prior to that. But there was fear there, and I created it because I thought that the business would shrink. I thought hedge funds would decrease in number, liquidity was going to decrease, those types of things. So I created it trying to provide some extra value to my clients so that I became more valuable to them. Plus, it allowed me to find things that helped me grow my business. And for traders, which was and has been my core revenue stream, they love those things. Find a gem or something they haven't seen or no one's seen, and then you can, when it comes to light, it's just a phenomenal opportunity. And it takes an enormous amount of work to find little gems, but it's been going really well for the last 10 years. And it also comes out on Saturday. So, on Saturday you have barons, but for the most part, people aren't really reading about finance. When the market closes at 4 o'clock, they usually show up, Monday morning to restart the week. For me, I spend most of my Saturdays and Sundays reading those same articles. I'm looking for those gems, and we publish it once a weekend. And when people have it, and again, this is a very small group of people, they can instantaneously, in a matter of a few minutes, read all of the headlines with connections to URLs, tagged with symbols, to know exactly what happened between 4 o'clock on Friday and before they come into work on Monday.
Wow. Eric, let's take a break. I want to come back with another segment, and I have a bunch of other questions for you.
I look forward to it.
All right, me too. Eric Lasky, RF Lafferty, Early Global News. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. This segment brought to you by Tycon Partners. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba, your host. I'm speaking with Eric Lasky. RF Lafferty is the company. We're talking about early global news, an entirely in-house product on news aggregation, but it's highly aggregated and highly condensed so that it really you're just getting what you need, not all the fluff. You're getting the steak, not the sizzle, right, Eric?
Pretty much. There's some fluff at the bottom, but it's clearly identified as fluff. Interesting factoids that you're going to hear throughout the day. But yeah, no, it's a phenomenal resource, and it's tough to explain to people what it is. They have it in front of them. It's really the fact that it starts at 4 o'clock when the market closes and covers your back when you're gone. It's been good for them.
Let's talk about the commoditization of news and the pro news aggregators. I want to talk about that, but I also want to explore the possibility of how to, me as a businessman, as a person that deals in content, how I could aggregate or how I could engage the early global news in my website and how I could use it for my audience. Can that happen?
Yeah, it can happen tomorrow. It's interesting that you say that because for me, in the beginning, I was looking to provide something special to protect myself. I wasn't looking to enhance my business or grow it at the time. Now that things obviously have come back dramatically and that aspect of it is not nearly as essential, now I have this product. It's really good. And what happens is as you read the piece, not on a daily basis looking for those gems alone, but what happens is as you scan the headlines, because it's primarily headlines, you get a feel for themes. You see repetition of similar stories, whether it be in solar or cars. So nothing, I don't say nothing, but 90% of the time, I'm not surprised when things start heating up. So Bitcoin was like that, and you see the evolution of it. You're really in tune with world news, and it's really hard to express the power of it that's so subtle because you're literally becoming educated on a daily basis and not really caring about the aspect of it. But as time progresses, you become so much more in tune with things that are happening. So as far as the piece itself, I want people to be on the same page with me. I aggregate it, I curate it, but the stories that the piece tells, nobody's really seeing it. They're seeing bits and pieces of it, but ultimately, reading it is just something that you're not expecting to get educated, but you do. So for you to have it, I would be happy to email you the piece every day. I did this for 1 year with a service. You had mentioned the commoditization of news.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure what your watchers or readers, sounders are familiar with, but there are services like Fly on the Wall, Trade the News, squawk boxes like Benzinga, which has both products. A new, very strong upcoming service called Trade Exchange is really good. And you have historical legacies similar to Fly on the Wall like Briefing Trader, chat rooms like Hammerstone. I mean, so many of those things going on that I had a good relationship with one of them. And they knew what it was after time. They loved delivering to their clients. And, sometime in the next few weeks, it may be one of the services that will have access to it. They might do it within their service for charging, but that's their thing. So if you wanted the piece every day, I will deliver it to you pre-market every day, and you can email it to your customers, your clients, your followers, and they will be reading the same things that I do and seeing the same things that I do. Now, within it, we'll have the Wall Street Journal. So if you subscribe to the journal, you really don't, from my perspective, you don't need it. On occasion, there will be stories that I will not include in my piece that you will miss out on, only because I don't think it's fresh or it's pertinent or important. So, and again, that's primarily my judgment as the editor of it. Nothing in the piece has my opinion. It's purely links, stock symbols, and things of the like. And some of the symbols that are in there are not mentioned in the article, but may be impacted. I don't signify whether it's in there or whether it's impacted, but if it's a story about Bitcoin and how they're switching from one type of chip to another, I might put the chip companies on there, although they're not mentioned specifically in the article. So I'm doing some additional work sometimes, which is great. And these pieces are not really all picked up by any one service. So if you read Fly on the Wall religiously and read every single thing they put out, I can guarantee you they're going to miss 20-30% of early global news. Not the big stories, but the smaller ones.
The details.
There are some extrapolations where my team, we get into the story too much because it's interesting, and we find gems within the article that you would only find within the article, which I love. And in a given day, I don't see how half of them are impacted, but I'm constantly reminded by people that I know that read early global news that, it just sort of a fly on the wall, or that was in Street Account a little while ago. So although I do see the gems and I look for them myself on occasion, I'm not a trader. My clients don't trade. So those aren't the important things to me. My clients just don't want to be snuck up on. So if CMG gets whacked in the middle of the day at 12 o'clock, my clients had already read the piece at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, and they saw that food safety had a lawsuit, and they were, et cetera, et cetera. And that pretty much happens every day.
Eric, we got to shut down the interview for now. But yes, I'm going to put a tab up. It's going to say Early Global News, and I want you to talk to my producer after we get off the air and set that thing up ASAP. I love it. I want it. I love it. I want it. I got to have it.
Nothing makes me happier. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to tell you about it.
All right, you can come back on the show and we'll talk about it. What's going on? All right.
At your beck and call. I've got tons of opinions, and obviously I talk a bit much, but I look forward to speaking to you again, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. All right, Eric Lasky, RF Lafferty. We're going to put up a new tab, Early Global News, and we're going to make that happen real quick.